In this session, we're taking a closer look at one of the most important and foundational process steps in any warehouse operation: receiving and processing. What may seem like a simple handover at the loading dock is actually a highly critical interface between suppliers and warehouse operations. And any errors or delays here tend to propagate throughout the entire system. This slide gives us an overview of key tasks and considerations in this process. We'll go through each of them one by one, and I'll also share practical examples and typical issues that come up in real-life operations. Let's start with the first point: the identification of goods. When a shipment arrives, the very first question we need to answer is, what exactly is this? What product has arrived? In what quantity? And is it what we ordered? There are two ways to answer these questions: manual and automated. Manual identification might still be common in smaller operations or in cases where labeling is inconsistent or missing. This could mean visually comparing labels, typing item numbers into a system, or even opening packaging to identify goods by hand. As you can imagine, this is time-consuming and highly error-prone. The better alternative is automatic identification, also known as Auto ID. This includes technologies like barcodes, QR codes, and RFID, radio frequency identification. In a well-run operation, the warehouse staff simply scans the barcode or tag on the incoming packaging, and the warehouse management system immediately knows what the product is, what batch it belongs to, who sent it, and where it's supposed to go. This doesn't just save time, it also helps reduce human error. Scanning a barcode takes 1 second, looking for the product number on a box, typing it in manually, and confirming it against an order can take 30 seconds or more per item. My colleague, Professor Bremer, goes into more technical depth on Auto ID systems in another course. So if you want to dive deeper into that, I recommend looking into his materials. Now, once we know what has arrived, we move to the next step: matching the goods receipt with the purchasing order, or PO for short. This is where the warehouse confirms, yes, this is what we ordered, and this is what we've received. It sounds simple, but keep in mind, many companies deal with thousands of active POs across multiple suppliers, delivery dates, and article numbers. So, this matching process is heavily reliant on system integration. When the goods receipt is matched successfully with the PO, this triggers a whole chain of follow-up actions, the most important being invoice release. In other words, the accounting department is allowed to pay the supplier's invoice, but only once the goods have physically arrived and have been confirmed by the warehouse. This ensures that companies don't pay for items they never received or that arrived damaged or incomplete. Next, we come to two very important types of inspection: the quantitative and the qualitative check. Let's start with the quantitative check. This is essentially about confirming that the right number of units have arrived, so we count the number of pieces, cartons, or pallets. In some cases, we may also measure dimensions or weight, especially if the warehouse charges handling fees based on volume or mass, or if precise product data is missing from the ERP system. Let me give you a real example. In one warehouse I visited, they had recurring discrepancies between incoming order quantities and actual stock levels. It turned out that a supplier had changed the packing configuration from 16 to 18 pieces per carton, but never communicated this. The warehouse kept scanning 1 carton, and the system assumed 16 pieces. Over time, this created massive inventory deviations. A simple check of the carton weight or a barcode update would have prevented this. Now we come to the qualitative check, which is a bit more nuanced. This means, are the goods in acceptable condition? Are they free from defects, damage, or contamination. In some industries like pharma or aerospace, the qualitative check is absolutely critical. Every incoming batch might undergo a visual inspection, sampling, or even destructive testing. But there's a trade-off. Qualitative checks can be time-consuming, especially if done thoroughly. And in some cases, they're destructive. Think of tensile strength testing, surface abrasion tests, or opening sterile packaging. For this reason, many companies try to shift responsibility for quality control back to the supplier. They implement certified supplier programs, which allow for reduced or even no incoming quality control, provided the supplier consistently delivers flawless goods. If something goes wrong, of course, it needs to be traceable. So even without full QC on every delivery, companies will still sample periodically and monitor suppliers using KPIs like defect rates or return rates. This brings us to an interesting side note shown on the right of the slide. The registration timestamp of the goods in the WMS does not necessarily reflect the actual arrival time. This might sound like a detail, but it has major implications, especially in systems where supplier performance is automatically rated based on on-time delivery. Let's say a supplier delivers at 7:15 a.m., but the goods aren't registered in the system until 9:30 a.m. because the warehouse was busy. An automated KPI system might flag the supplier as late, even though the truck was perfectly on time. This can damage supplier relationships, distort performance dashboards, and lead to poor decision-making. It's therefore critical that companies define clearly what on time means, and whether it refers to actual arrival or system registration. Let's now move to a more physical part of the receiving and processing step, the pallet changer. In many warehouses, especially in the food, pharma, and cosmetics industries, goods are received on wooden pallets, but must be transferred to hygienic plastic pallets before being moved into clean storage zones. Doing this manually is time-consuming, potentially unsafe, and introduces hygiene risks. That's where automated pallet changers come into play. These machines grip the product stack and move it from one pallet to another, either by lifting, clamping, or rotating. There are multiple technologies on the market depending on the product and packaging. To give you a visual impression, we've linked 2 short videos on this slide. They show different pallet changers in action. I highly recommend watching them after this session so you can see how fast and efficient these systems can be. Before we conclude, I want to emphasize that receiving and processing are not isolated technical tasks. They are gateways into your system. Mistakes here multiply downstream. Misidentified goods cause picking errors. Wrong quantities lead to stockouts or overstock. And poor quality control results in customer complaints, returns, or worse. Getting this step right is absolutely fundamental to running a smooth warehouse operation. And it's not just about process design. It's about people, training, systems, and equipment. In the next modules, we'll build on this foundation and explore how these early process steps influence the rest of the value chain. From storage strategies, to picking accuracy, to fulfillment speed. So take a moment to review the key concepts from this slide, and if possible, check out the pallet changer videos as little bonus homework.